and his dad like leans over the table and is like, "Granddad's just been kicked out." And this was like words that I never thought I would hear in a strip club. Hello gorgeous, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ginger Zephyr and I'm a traveling stripper. This means that I have dealt with a lot of different types of customers and a lot of interesting customers in my time. So in this video, I thought I would share with you my funniest customer experiences, since I do seem to have quite a few. So I'm gonna go get some sparkling water, but I'll be back in a second. So I have to say, the customer I had who peed himself the other week was probably, that's probably like right up the top of the list. I just had a customer piss himself during a lap dance. But I have over 6 years worth of stories, so let's get into them now. Okay, so at the first strip club I worked at, this was a Sunday night. I remember like this guy came in, he was a bit older and I could tell he was a little bit unusual. And he came up to me and started like talking, and then he ordered a pineapple juice and was like, "You should get a pineapple juice as well." And I was like, okay, sure. I know what pineapple juice does, but I don't know what that has to do with being at this venue. It's not gonna make a difference to you, buddy. And then he turned to me and he's like, "You know what pineapple juice does?" And I'm like, "I know what you're gonna say." And like I didn't say that, I was just thinking it. And he goes, "It stops you from getting leprosy, and that's really important." So I was like, "Oh, okay, great. I'll have a pineapple juice, thanks." And then he asked if he asked the manager if he could DJ at the club. She obviously said no. He came back like 2 weeks later with a full bag of CDs. I saw him walk into the club and I was like, "Oh my god, this guy again, what does he have?" And yeah, he had like big bag of CDs because he was like, "The music in here is shit, and I think I should DJ here. These are the CDs that you should play." I didn't even realize all of the music that's played at strip clubs is always over a system. It's always like overmatic, using like a program, not CDs. Depending on the club, there'll be like a DJ on Friday, Saturday nights, and they'll like handle it, but most of the time it'll be over like a system. So he tried. For a while, I had a good regular. I met him at a club in Brisbane, and he booked myself and he booked a few other girls on the night that he came in. And he really took a liking to me. And I know this because in the middle of the lap dance, he goes, "You've got beautiful blue eyes, gorgeous red hair. You look just like Pauline Hanson." And he meant it as the biggest compliment you could give someone. He meant it like genuinely, like as though he was saying the nicest thing ever to me. But I was like, are you kidding me? Pauline Hanson is this horrible, horrible Australian politician. Very racist, very a lot of things. I do not want to be associated with her in any way, shape or form, but he was obsessed with how I looked like Pauline Hanson apparently. Yeah, he was an interesting guy. He used to come in a fair bit. He would always like talk about how we're gonna get married. He would buy me like rings and stuff. Not actual rings, but like rings from a chemist or something. And I'd keep them in my work bag so that I wasn't like wearing them all the time. But when I saw him come in, I'd run out the back and put my rings on to make it look like I always wore them. And I think once he caught me off guard and I didn't have any on, and he was like, "Where are your rings?" and was so upset. And I was like, "Oh, I had to take them off because I just did a spa show," or something like that. Yeah, he would always go on about how we were getting married. I would always like go along with it, be like, "Yeah, babe, where are we having our honeymoon?" And he was dead set on having our honeymoon in Warwick. He'd just look at me and go, "Warwick, Warwick." Let me Google Warwick now. Okay, Warwick is a town and locality in southeast Queensland. It's like this tiny town. There is nothing there that I would associate with a honeymoon, but whatever floats your boat. And once I was like, what about like Fiji or like Bali even? And he was like, no, Warwick. Here we go, 7 things to do in Warwick. Let's see what comes up. Explore historic houses, smell the roses, camp, go to a lookout. There's one waterfall that looks like a tiny stream of water. Oh well. He used to say to me, you've got beautiful small breasts. It's really good that you've got small breasts because that means that you'll be able to produce a lot of milk. You see those girls over there, and he'd point to like another girl in the club who had big boobs. He'd be like, you see her, that girl and that girl, they're not going to be able to produce so much milk just because they've got big boobs. But you're very lucky. You're going to be able to produce a lot of milk with your small breasts. It's amazing. And I was like, uh-huh. Cool, thanks. I'm glad you like them. And he used to bring me in like photos that he'd like scanned and printed of him when he was 18. And he didn't tell me how old he was, but I was guessing mid-late 60s. And he didn't have any technology. He didn't have a phone. The only way that I could contact him and tell him what days that I was working was by literally like posting him a letter. And so every week I would post him what days I was working. I would write it down like in a little card and I'd send it to him. Obviously I didn't put my like postage address on the back, so he didn't know my address. But yeah, I would have to send that like every single week. And he would come in. He followed me to a different club, and I saw him for a few times at this venue, and he started complaining about how he was having pains in his chest. And I was like, you should probably get that tested. You should get that looked at. And he was like, oh yeah, sure, yeah. And then he just I didn't see him anymore, and I don't know what happened, but I'm assuming that there was a health issue, which is a shame. He was an interesting character, but he was still a gentleman. Definitely added some excitement to my stripping days for a little bit. Okay, this happened in Perth. So I walked up to this table and there were 3 people sitting at it, and I didn't realize at the time, but it was a son, his dad, and his dad. So it was like 3 generations sitting at this table, which is a bit weird, but it's fine. I walked up and I was like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? I can't remember why they were there, but they were like, I'm like his dad and he's my dad. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna pretend that it's normal. And the young one, so the son, pulls money out of his wallet and is like, can you give my dad a lap dance? I wanna buy him one. I'm like, sure, darling. And then he goes, oh, no. I don't want a lap dance, I'll give it to my dad. And then he gets up and he's like, okay, sure. And so like I take the granddad into the lap room, and he is atrocious to dance for. He keeps on saying the most disgusting things to me, and he keeps trying to touch me, he keeps trying to push my boundaries. I end up cancelling the dance a few minutes in because I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't care. Like, you're being like so disrespectful. I ended up getting security and had him kicked out. He had been really, really touchy, and in Perth you can't touch at all. He was escorted out, and then I had to go and walk back to the table and tell them, hey, sorry to tell you this, but he's been like kicked out because he was breaking the rules. Just thought I'd let you know before I moved on. The son couldn't hear what I was saying, so he asked his dad, and his dad leans over the table and is like, Granddad's just been kicked out. And this was like words that I never thought I would hear in a strip club. Whatever floats your boat. I hope those 2 had a good time. Once I was at one club and a customer said to me, oh, I'm not going to book you. I'm only going to book you if the Macarena comes on. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Like, it's a strip club. No one plays the Macarena. So I was just like, I'm not going to waste my time. I walked away. He left the venue, and I don't know how this happened. I literally cannot explain it, but the next song that came on after he left was the Macarena, and all the girls just decided to go up on stage and start doing the Macarena, and I'm sitting there dumbfounded. How did this just happen? Is he just like a Macarena magician or something? Like, I don't know how that, whatever. And then another club I worked at, I was on stage with 2 other girls, because it was a club where stage was a bit of a free-for-all. You could just like go up pretty like most of the time whenever you wanted, and you could have as many girls like up there with you. I was up there with 2 other girls, it wasn't just me. Halfway through our set, a customer runs up to the stage, does the worm across the stage, and then just runs out of the venue. And the other two girls that I was on stage with didn't even notice. I was the only one who saw it because they were kind of like facing the other way, kind of like just like shaking their butt on the pole, not really looking at anything. And I was like, no one saw this? I was the only one who saw this. Did that even happen? Earlier this year, I was dancing for a customer, and so I have 2 moles on my back, which I don't really care about. Like, I literally do not think about them at all. Like, obviously when I'm getting them tested and stuff, but like in regards to my body and how I look, I just don't think about them at all. I was dancing for a customer and I like turned around. He touched the mole on my back and was like, oh my God, that's so hot. I was like, oh my God, it's hot. I need to get it tested. Like, I haven't had my mole checked in a while. And I was like, I turned around and I was like, oh my God, like, does it feel bad? Like, do you think there's something wrong with it? And he was like, no, I meant like it looks sexy. And I was like, okay, that's new. Like, that's fine. And then like 2 nights later, I had another customer say like the same thing to me, that my mole was sexy. I'm fine with that. Once in Brisbane, I walked up to this customer and I was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I'm Ginger. And he was like, oh, we've met before. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah, like I got a dance from you a few weeks ago. And I was like, oh, oops, like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't say this, of course, but like we deal with a lot of like people. So like unless someone stands out in a way like they're really generous, or we have great connection, or unless they're like a complete arsehole, just because like we're exposed to so many people, we don't always remember the people that we meet. And I was like, oh yeah, badly pretending that I remembered. And he was like, you know what, if you remember my name, I'll book you again. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. He was like a middle-aged man, and I was like, middle-aged men have like 3 names. It's always like John, Mark, or Michael. I can't remember what I said. I think I said like Mark. I was like, oh yeah, of course, it's Mark. And he was like, oh my God, how did you know? And then just proceeded to book me. So that was easy, and cheers to that. In some states, grinding is allowed. Like for instance, in Western Australia, grinding is allowed during a lap dance. But in Queensland, you have to keep a 30-centimetre distance between genitals when you're giving a lap dance. And in Queensland, often customers will slouch in their seats, thinking that like you'll grind on them because their crotch is closer to your crotch, when in fact we have to keep 30-centimetre distance. It doesn't matter like where they're sitting. They're not going to get grinded on anyway, but it's just something that they do. There was this guy one night who, he was slouching, and I was like, darling, can you sit up straight? He didn't do anything. Darling, can you sit up straight? Didn't do anything. Darling, sit up straight with your back against the chair. And then he goes, I am straight, I'm not gay. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this right now. In Perth once, I was talking to a customer, and I asked him, what would your stripper name be? And he answered, Holden Monaro. Wasn't joking at all. He was being 100% serious. Also at this club in Perth, I had a very, very interesting regular. I don't even know where to start. He was very attached. He clearly had attachment issues, and he like, it was a very like emotionally draining customer relationship to have, because he was like very very needy, but also wanted me to ignore him. Would always say like, I love it when you treat me like, would always say like, I love it when you ignore me. Dealing with him was very like delicate. You had to be very, very intentional and very aware of what you were saying, and most things that you said was like either make or break. But he was great. He would always just give me money. He never booked me once. He never booked me ever. But he would come into the club, sit in the corner, and just like tip me throughout the night. He just wanted to like watch me hustle. He just wanted me to like ignore him and like walk around, like watch me walk around the club. This customer relationship was quite difficult to manage. So I definitely deserved like all the cash that he ever handed me. I definitely deserved that. But yeah, he was like absolutely cooked. He was absolutely cooked. I think like in the end he was placed in some kind of like conservatorship, and like he did not have access to his money at all. I think once he asked me for like $20 to buy a packet of cigarettes, and I said no, and he threw a tantrum. I was like, I don't care how much money you've given me, I don't owe you anything. He would like, yeah, sit in the corner like on a couch by himself in the club, and he would just like put headphones on and listen to music. Other customers would always be like, what the f is that guy over there? And I'd be like, don't worry about it, like don't even ask. I've never had a customer like so obsessed with me. I remember once like the first time I met him once. He was like, oh, I don't want to dance, but here's $50. And then a few nights later I had my manager come into the change room and be like, oh Ginger, this customer's like asking for you, he keeps like going on and on about you. And I was like, okay, who is this? Okay. So I went out on the floor and it was him, and I was like, he didn't even book me. Like he just gave me $50 just like for like as a tip. And he had brought in like this group of friends, and they were all going on about, oh my God, we've heard so many like amazing things about you. Like we're so excited to meet you. And I was like, what the, like what's going on? And then it was all, that was a wild ride. But like some of the things that he said to me, like I cannot say on YouTube. It's not that I can't say them because they're too like naughty, but they're too like, I don't know how to say it, like the like sexual things that came out of his mouth. I was like, that's quite alarming. Oh my God. And in Brisbane, so I worked at this club in Brisbane. During the day it was a topless bar, and at night it was a strip club. And there was this gentleman who would always come into the topless bar downstairs. I think I spoke to him like when I was new, the first few times I was there. Then I realized that he wasn't really a spender. So I never really spoke to him, but he would always like comment on like the Facebook page of the club and be like, oh beautiful, and like I had a lovely chat with blah 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 today. Just random shit on the Facebook page. I remember once like I was getting food after work with a few girls that I worked with, and we were like, oh let's look at the Facebook page, see like if anyone's like said anything or like what the comments are like. I don't know, we're just kind of like curious. And we saw that he had like been commenting on all the photos. We're like, oh, let's have a look at his profile. It was a typical Facebook profile for someone who was like in his 60s, 70s, older kind of man. Nothing too surprising, but we went to his albums on Facebook, and it turned out that there was a photo album full of super explicit photos of Nicole Kidman. Extremely explicit. But they weren't even her. It was like her face superimposed on pornographic images. I don't know if he did the edits himself or where he got them from, but it was just like a folder full of Nicole Kidman's face all over these naked women, like literally like spread eagle. I don't understand. It just made no sense. And I think someone like had commented being like, what the fuck is this? And he was like, oh, I think this is like a beautiful dedication to Nicole Kidman or something like that. And the person who replied was like, that's not even Nicole Kidman, it's just her face. I don't know, like if he thought it was, I don't know, but it was just. Okay, so I wasn't working at this club when this happened, but I did work at this club at the same time. And this is just a story that I heard from a co-worker. So at this club, it's a regular strip club, but like the main area where the stage is, the girls are split into thirds. So for like 20 minutes, 1/3 of the girls will like walk around asking for lap dances, because there are all these couches and it's like $5, $10, $20 dances. It's like for 20 minutes, like once per hour, you walk around and hustle for like mini dances. I hope that I have explained that in the best possible way. But yeah, so like once an hour you do a 20-minute round, because there's 3 different sets of 20 minutes for like the 3 different types of girls. And like normally when you're sitting in these couches, everyone knows this venue has been around for a long time. Everyone knows that if you sit in one of those couches, that like you want to get a dance, $5, $10, $20 dance. And this guy had like been at this venue for a little over an hour. So he'd like seen all the girls. All the girls had asked him for a dance, and he hadn't said yes to anyone. And everyone's getting pretty annoyed at this point, because they're like, why are you here? Like you're And then one girl comes up to him and is like, "What? Like, why are you here? Why haven't you got a dance yet?" Or something like that. And he goes, "I just want to see a bush. A bush." And then like gets up and leaves. And where, like, the reason why he'd said no to everyone is because obviously we're all shaved. Like, it's pretty rare for someone to have, like, sometimes like people have a landing strip, but everyone's all shaved because that's just like the standard of the industry that we work in. But yeah, he got upset that he hadn't seen like anyone with a bush and then left. In Melbourne, there was this guy that used to come into the venue all the time. He never wanted to get a dance. If you walked up to him, he'd like give you like $50 to like leave him alone. So like there'd be times where I'd go up to him multiple times a night and be like, so that he'd like just give me $50 so I could go away. And then one night I was like really intrigued by him. I was like, who are you? And then I think like I was chatting to him and I was like, "What's your favorite one hit wonder?" And he was like, "That's the best question anyone's ever asked me." And he like immediately like was like, "Let's go," and like went to the like lap room. I had never seen him go for a lap dance like at all in this venue. So cracked the code. If you can't get a customer to like to book anyone, ask him what his favorite one hit wonder is. I'm joking, like I don't know. Also in Melbourne, there was like this customer who would come into the venue all the time. He had a ridiculous amount of money and he wanted people to do ridiculous things for his money. And I remember once he wanted me to like, he put like a $100 note or like on the stage and was like, "You can have this if you can pick it up with your butt cheeks." I didn't even try. It's so unhygienic. This wasn't me. But I remember being in the change room once and this girl walks in and is like, "This customer just told me my asshole looks better than my face does," and was like genuinely really upset. So I was working in Perth. I banged my knee against the side of the stage. I think I had a scab on my knee and I banged my knee against the side of the stage and it was like metal. And I was like, "Oh, that hurts." But like I didn't think like anything of it. At this club, you can do like lap dances around the side of the stage, like just mini ones for people who tip. Like I danced for a few people and then I realized that my knee was like bleeding all down my leg. And I was like, shit. So I like went back on the stage and just like kind of like spent the rest of the time making sure that like blood didn't really get anywhere. I know like there were a few drops of blood like right near the edge, like the edge of the stage, and I was keeping track of that, like making sure that was all that there was. Right before my time is up, I see this girl. This couple sits down at the stage and this girl sits down in front of her partner, which is like super disrespectful, by the way. She was just like sitting on the stage like in front of him, being like drunkenly trying to like divert his attention. And I realized that she was sitting like directly in like this like mini pool of blood. And I was like, you know what? I don't even care because you're sitting at my stage. I'm not even gonna say anything. I remember once this guy came in. This happened so fast. There was like Stereosonic was on and our club actually relaxed their dress code specifically for Stereosonic. So like you couldn't enter the venue if you were wearing like a singlet, but they knew that all the customers were going to be coming from Stereosonic and wearing singlets. So they relaxed the dress code for one night. The first guy who came in was wearing a singlet and I was on stage and he sat down like right at my stage and he just pulled out three $50 notes, put them down on my stage. And I was like, okay, like this is paying off. Like I'm glad they relaxed the dress code. And then I get off stage, put my things back on at the back, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get them for a dance. I'm gonna get him for a dance because obviously like he's interested. I walk back out and there's like his partner or something there and they start pretty much having like dry sex like in front of like the stage. And I was like, and then like of course they immediately got kicked out and I was like, okay, well that was I got what I could. Whatever. It was fun while it lasted. I got my $150, so. At my club in Perth, there was this gentleman who used to come in at the start of the night and just get like a 5-minute lap dance. He was quite old. I never saw him after the club reopened after COVID. I don't know why, But yeah, he was very, very old. He liked me. He would often book me, but there were like, I remember like speaking to another girl who he had booked. I was like, oh, how did that go? She was like, oh, at the end, he leaned in like really closely to me and said, I like it when I can smell a woman's egg. I have no words. But yeah, other than that, I think that's about it. I can't think of any others. I know I do have more though. Thank you for joining me for this video. If you do want me to do some digging, see if anyone else that I've worked with remembers any other experiences, I'll look into it if you want a part 2. If you are interested, comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you have any funny customer experiences of your own and you're a stripper, I'd love to hear them below as well. I actually have like quite a few funny customer stories from McDonald's as well, but I'm not gonna include them in this video because like, I'm sure you don't want to hear about McDonald's in a stripper video. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always. Make sure you like this video so that I know that you like this kind of content. Subscribe to my channel so you can keep up to date on all of my videos that come out. And I just want to say thank you for joining me once again. I love you and I hope you have a magical day.